me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worry about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga back up, bitch? Why you always trying to press a nigga? If it ain't one thing, it's the next, it starts to stress a nigga. This overthinking that you doing, it affects a nigga. Patience running thin with you for real, bitch, don't you test a nigga. Ain't never been the type to show no one affection, nigga. She don't trust me, say I'm the reason she don't mess with niggas. Calls me toxic cause I ain't with none of the extras, niggas. Pushing me away, bro, once I'm gone, you ain't gon' catch a nigga. I'm feeling boxed in, I need me some space. There ain't no turning back like TK, I'm doing the race. Forget the bitch, I bag the only thing I ever would chase. Thought you was coming with sight, your number getting erased. On to the next, you should've known how wide the look on your face. Get the fuck from off my phone, it's best that you know your place. These years I'll never get them back, with you they go in the waste. Got what I wanted, now I'm skating and you getting replaced. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga back up, bitch? Why you always trying to press a nigga? If it ain't one thing, it's the next, it starts to stress a nigga. This overthinking that you doing, it affects a nigga. Patience running thin with you for real, bitch, don't you test a nigga. Ain't never been the type to show no one affection, nigga. She don't trust me, say I'm the reason she don't mess with niggas. Calls me toxic cause I ain't with none of the extras, niggas. Pushing me away, bro, once I'm gone, you ain't gon' catch a nigga. I'm feeling boxed in, I need me some space. There ain't no turning back like TK, I'm doing the race. Forget the bitch, I bag the only thing I ever would chase. Thought you was coming with sight, your number getting erased. On to the next, you should've known how wide the look on your face. Get the fuck from off my phone, it's best that you know your place. These years I'll never get them back, with you they got what I wanted, now I'm skating and you getting replaced. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Yeah, it's Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. This is the show that values time. However you are watching, listening, appreciate you guys for tuning in today. So we're going to start with, generally, I don't think you should use flagrant terms when describing other people. If you don't know them, right? Like, you don't know people, try to be nice. But it's really hard to hear. Joel Embiid was doing a podcast yesterday or 2 days ago now at this time. And what he was talking about, it was just really hard not to call him a bitch. And so he goes on, and normal NBA player doing podcasts, they're saying certain things for clicks, saying certain things for views. I get it, understand it. But then he started talking about Jason Tatum. And he said, well, of course Jason Tatum won. He's got a super team. If I go 5 for 20, we get blown out. Now, if you're Joel Embiid specifically, you cannot say this. It's not just the fact you're the only MVP to never make the conference finals. There's a couple MVPs who never made the NBA finals, but you're the only MVP to never make the conference finals. That's one. Two, you historically have maybe the most aggressive GM in the history of the sport in Daryl Morey. Like, who else do you need him to go out and get that he has not already gotten for you? When they show you those lists, you'll see them on Twitter, and it's like the accolades of the guys that played with him, or all these different names they throw on there. And a lot of times they're out of context. They are. Like LeBron does it. LeBron's probably the most out of context because they love to say, oh, look at all the players he played with. And they include like Shaq when he was clearly at the end of his career. These other guys on that's like they were obviously not the players they were in their prime when the time they played with LeBron. But if you're Joel Embiid and you got to play with what became, we didn't know at the time, but what became prime Ben Simmons, you've had James Harden. Hell, before we even get to Harden, can we just talk about that team where you had Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick, yourself, Tobias Harris? Like, what do you call that? So first off, I don't even believe this Celtics team that just won the title. Yes, they won the title. They get the credit. Cool. But I wouldn't even view them in the same super team the way we normally have classified those throughout NBA history. Like the Heatles were a super team. I don't even really like the first Boston Big Three, but if you want to call that, fine. That's a super team. The Heatles were clearly a super team. Then you had other teams. The Knicks attempted to do it. The Warriors obviously probably had our latest iteration with Curry, Clay, Durant, Draymond Green. But to me, this Celtics team was just 6 to 7 above average players. And now they were all truly above average. Like these weren't, you had 2 first team All-NBA guys or 2 All-NBA guys in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And then you had 4 All-Star quality, maybe end of the All-Star quality, but All-Star quality players. And that was your team. It wasn't LeBron, D. Wade, Bosh. It wasn't Steph, Durant, Clay. So the team idea of the idea that the Celtics were a super team, I just don't consider it true. And if I'm just ranking them, I can make an argument. The very first team you were introduced to, because you didn't play the first couple years of your career because you're injured, and I'm not going to hold that against you. But the first team that you really had, again, yourself, JJ Redick, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler. That team, if we just want to rank names, is just as talented, is just as accomplished, now one less title, is that would look like this version of the Celtics team that just won the title this year. So you get that to start your career. Fine. Ben Simmons doesn't pan out. He's not the player that we all thought he was going to be. Cool. That happens. But you have one of the most aggressive GMs in the history of the sport. He not only gave you that team to start your career, he still went out and got you James Harden. He still went out and got you all these other players over the last couple of years. He has never not made moves. He's never not put you in a position to win. And you're going to come out and slam Jason Tatum because he actually won? Here's my other issue. Because it's not just the comment, and it's not just that there's hypocrisy because Embiid has played on teams that are the same quality as what this current Celtics team is. That's not even the real issue. But when you're Joel Embiid, another reason why you can't talk this way and why there's more demeaning and vitriol towards you specifically, I'm going to get to that comment too, is because look at the way that you play. Like, I used to have maybe my greatest take that I felt has aged the best is Tony Will and I used to argue Embiid versus Giannis. And I always took Giannis, they always took Embiid. 5 years later, I feel great about that. I think I'm right. I think it's proven to be right. Giannis was clearly the better player. I think Giannis has always been the better player. And just Giannis's mentality is just infinitely better than Embiid's. People are going at Embiid, and he said this too. He said, I don't know why I feel like I'm the most hated player in the league, and I don't even know why. I'm just cool. Look at the way you play. You are as gifted and talented as any center who has probably ever played the game of basketball. And yet you decide to play the game of basketball in a way that is flopping, that is foul drawing, it's like, it just looks awkward. And your skill, we all recognize your skill, your talent, everything about you. We all recognize you are a great player. You could be potentially one of the 5 best players in the world. You could be on any given night the best player in the world. You're that fucking talented. Normally don't swear this much in segments, but man, this just irritates me. So, Joel Embiid, your teams have been, especially that first iteration, were just as good and just as talented as this Celtics team that won a title. You just didn't get it done. And if you want to say you and Ben Simmons, fine. But you're the star, the same way Tatum would be judged if the Celtics team didn't win the title. You're the superstar. You're the guy making max money. You're getting the first team All-NBA nods. You make that work, and you didn't. And that's when you guys had a stacked roster. That has more of an argument of being a super team than this Celtics team. And again, why don't people like me? I'm just cool. Well, how about foul flopping and chasing? Look how, I think it's really shown in the Olympics. Look at stylistically the way Embiid plays versus everybody else. Embiid is just outright foul hunting. Even the other guys in the NBA, and FIBA just doesn't call it. Like the world, when it comes to the Olympics, they're just not calling that shit. And I love it, and I appreciate it. Cool. The other guys who have that reputation, we don't see clips floating all around of SGA doing it, and he's a notorious foul hunter during the NBA regular season. We never saw the LeBron, who is at times a foul chaser. He's not going and doing this. You are the biggest guy on the court, and you are flopping, moving your arms through, and you're trying to get foul calls. You did this when it looked the worst in the scrimmage against high schoolers and college players, and you're still foul banning against them when you're the 7-foot, 320-pound guy who's supposed to be as skilled as Hakeem. Look, man, at some point we have to be serious about Embiid. Excuse me. At some point we have to be serious, and that is this guy. And I had a theme for today, but I don't think it fits with everything, so I dropped it. But it's an old school versus new school theme in just the way that there's certain thought processes that are clearly more old school, and there's thought processes that are clearly more new school. And when it comes to Joel Embiid, he has one of the most new school approaches ever, because he has literally the mentality that old people make fun of us for. That people in their 40s, 50s, oh, it was tougher back in my day. Oh, we had to harder, we had to really work to get it. You guys just giving stuff. Embiid has been given multiple competitive rosters, multiple superstars, multiple chances to win. He didn't sit there and have to go through 5-6 years of losing, slowly getting guys either through the draft or maybe hopefully getting a free agent and then breaking through. He's been given max contracts. He's been given maybe the most aggressive GM in the history of the sport. He's been given other superstar quality players who have been, in Jimmy Butler's case, the best player on another team. And he's complaining about Tatum's super team or about people not liking him. Sometimes you are who you are and your reputation is earned. And Joel Embiid has earned his reputation of being, despite how skilled, despite how talented, despite how good he is at the game of basketball, he has absolutely earned a reputation of, this guy is just not enjoyable to watch play basketball. This guy is just not enjoyable, not a fun watch. I compare it to Steph. I saw a Twitter clip of, it was a non-sport channel, but they're using Steph to show like an accuracy or precision thing. And Steph is one of the most fun players we've ever got to watch in the history of basketball. He truly is. I've never enjoyed watching someone shoot a basketball. Forget obviously his percentages and his makes are all-time high. He's the greatest shooter ever. But just the way he shoots a basketball has never not been interesting, has never not been enjoyable, has never not been fun. I could watch Steph play 3-4 games in a row. I could watch Steph play 5-6 nights a week. I could not do that with Embiid. And Steph has actually accomplished stuff. And yes, Steph had a super team. So you want to say your accolades aren't quite what someone else should be because you weren't on the Steph Warriors? Fine. But Steph was also a big reason why he was a super team. If, once again, that original Sixers team, if I just give you those names, Embiid, Redick, Butler, Harris, Simmons, if they had won a title, they would be considered a super team. NBA would look back at them in history and say, wow. Or at least they would be viewed and looked at the same way we look at this iteration of the Celtics, which is 5 to 6 super high quality rotational players with an MVP in the middle. So Joel Embiid, I don't want to hear your shit. I don't. It's not worth it. You're a great player because of what you can do, but go out and produce. Stop going and bitching every other time about somebody else has that you don't. Again, this whole old school, new school mentality, that is entitled, spoiled brat mentality from a 7-foot, 300-pound man. It's fucking embarrassing. Like I said, I don't like to swear as much, but I had to get that point across. Embiid just drives me nuts for as talented as he is and to still complain like that. Let's talk about some football. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. So CeeDee Lamb's not reporting because he wants a new contract, and the reality is CeeDee's probably going to get paid because I discussed yesterday, I do think some of these owners are going to start pushing back on the way contracts, but I think that's going to happen with quarterbacks first, not so much other positions. Right, so I think CeeDee's going to get paid. I think Mike is going to get paid. I think Dak is going to be just kind of left out there, and we'll see what happens. But here's the problem with what CeeDee Lamb wants or what the Cowboys want or what Jerry Jones wants. Jerry Jones is old school. I said this yesterday. In a room full of billionaires, Jerry Jones is potentially the most impactful and most powerful billionaire as far as this NFL circle of billionaire boys. He's no longer the richest, but he still has the most profitable franchise. He still has a lot of influence in that room. And so a lot of other teams are looking at him. What are you going to do? Are you going to, I said Trevor Lawrence screwed up the quarterback market because he doesn't have the success to justify the amount of money that he was paid. But he has a pedigree of best high school quarterback, best college quarterback, and now, hey, he's had one really good year, one playoff win. We think this is, we think he's still going to continue this trend of continuing to be this high-end player at any level that he's at. Dak doesn't have that. So if you give Dak the kind of money you give Trevor Lawrence, you're basically saying anyone who we think is a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I'm not trying to rip Dak, but Dak is just that. He is a starting quarterback in the NFL. Don't give me his stats. Don't give me the numbers. Don't give me the 400-yard games or 4,000-yard seasons. But we have eyes. Dak is a good starting quarterback in the NFL. So if you give him $60 million a year and you're Jerry Jones and you have the Cowboys, which is the biggest brand in the sport, that sends a message that this is never going to stop. You pay Dak $60 million a year, this is never going to stop. Or you could do this, which is, hey, Dak, we love you. We appreciate you, everything you've done, but we're going to pay CeeDee Lamb because we think he's one of the 5 best receivers in football. We're going to pay Micah Parsons because we think he's one of the 5 best defensive players in football. And we're probably going to let you play one more year and walk. Now, I think everybody kind of has come to that consensus. And I think Dak probably knows that in the back of his head. And he knows he'll get paid. Like, somebody will pay Dak Prescott. He's not going to be unemployed or not be a starting quarterback for an NFL team next year. But where Jerry Jones' real problem in all of this is going to lie is, A, the only potential solution you have on the roster is, do you hand over the keys to Trey Lance? Because if you don't re-sign Dak, you're going to have to give the keys to somebody. And all you can really do to say, hey, these are keys worth grabbing is is how well do you furnish your house? Well, if we have CeeDee Lamb and we have Micah Parsons, can we make this attractive enough to either a rookie young quarterback or to Trey Lance and see if he can make it work? And two, if you're Jerry Jones, what is your timeline? Because you have been running this operation as if need to win a Super Bowl. We all know his age. We all know he wants to win another one before he eventually moves on. But if I don't have Dak, I've got to give it over to a rookie quarterback, and I've got to pay a handful of guys top-end money, which is the other thing of why, again, referring to the point we made yesterday, these guys don't like being forced to pay a certain amount, especially if you're not winning. The Chiefs and the Hunt family right now, they don't give a fuck who they pay. They'll pay damn near everybody as much as the salary cap will allow them because they have the current dynasty. They have Super Bowls. Their franchise evaluation is going through the roof. We saw this with the Warriors. You're winning titles. You have the current dynasty. We'll pay the luxury tax year in, year out. Not winning titles anymore. We don't want to pay the luxury tax. And so Jerry has to make up his mind of, what am I going to do at my age, all these contract demands? Do I want to pay, and I think everybody will get the money besides Dak. Do I want to pay CeeDee Lamb, who's probably going to come in at the most money for a non-quarterback in the NFL, surpassing Justin Jefferson? Do I want to pay Micah Parsons more money than Nick Bosa, who's currently the highest paid defensive player? I don't think Jerry does, because they're not bringing in titles. When you're not bringing in titles, guys, just these billionaires don't want to pay you the same way. Especially when you are looking around at your competition and you got to go, okay, what are we going to be if we pay all three of them, hypothetically? Well, we've seen that team hasn't produced results. Don't know if they're going to get much better. It's hard to say Micah and CD will be better than they were the last 2 years. So paying them all max money now, probably not going to have a better team, and it's also probably not feasible considering the salary cap. So who's going to get paid? How are they going to get paid? And what's your timeline? And other teams and other owners are looking at Jerry. Again, a room full of billionaires, this Billionaires Boys Club. Jerry Jones is one of the most impactful and influential people in that room. And what he does is going to pay dividends, and it is going to, talk about this last week, it's only impactful if someone else does it. If you just make a one-time decision, it's just you, it's not as impactful. It is not viewed the same way. It's just you made a decision. But the decision Jerry Jones is going to make, that will be impactful because there's other owners who are going to follow suit. Do they just say, hey, look, you're not about to bully me for $40 million a year. Not going to do it. We're not winning with you in that same regard, so I'm not going to give everybody max money just because you're up next and you're in the high end of your position. A lot that's going on in Dallas. Like I said, and look at your surroundings. You're not going to be better than the Niners, who pay a lot of their top-end guys, but they're at least going to NFC Championship games, Super Bowls. You're probably not going to be better than Detroit, who all of their guys are even younger. Are you even going to be better than Philadelphia inside your division? There's going to be a lot here. A lot of what happens with this Dallas Cowboys offseason, I think, is going to be extremely impactful because you're going to see trends made off of what Jerry Jones decides to do. Lots to talk about today, man. It is Wednesday, so we got our list for Wednesday. We are going to be going over our top 10 NFL storylines. They're not the 10 things I want to happen or I think most likely to happen, but there will be the 10 most interesting things to happen, as well as some more stuff, more NFL. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily.
Yeah. Spats. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the 4 with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the foe in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
This Celtics team is just better than the Mavericks. Look, the Mavericks have had a wonderful season. I said this last week, and there's no way to disregard or count out how great of a season it's been. But the reality is, the Mavs were a 5 seed. They were down 20 to the Clippers. They lost. They kept bringing on the telecast how many times they lost game 1, but then they rebounded. This team, while they are on a hot streak because their best player is currently playing some of the best basketball of his life, that works when it's comparable. It works when you're right there with the Clippers, or you're right there with the Oklahoma City Thunder, or you're right there with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And those were all 50-win teams. They all had great seasons in their own rights. But the Timberwolves were young. The Thunder were young. The Clippers, well, they're the Clippers. We've been waiting for years for the Clippers to figure it out. This Celtics team is just better than the Mavericks. This Celtics team. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody that is tuning in. So, one of the worst storylines or worst rationale that we use to explain something, or even, it's probably more along theory, right, is rest versus rust. And this comes up in sports a lot. And I think it's probably more valid in the NFL because it's a high contact sport. There's injuries that can happen, and so I give them a little bit more of a pass when they say, rest versus rust. And I think these guys are all so well-trained and such – the difference between a professional athlete and a regular human is so much more drastic than people realize, that a guy taking 2 weeks off, if they have a bye week or if they don't play week 18 of the season, is not as drastic as I think people like to make it out. It's just as fans, we've rationalized it as, oh, this is a reason to lose. If your team was the best team all year, and then they sit out week 18, they have a bye week, and then they come out against a team in the playoffs and they lose, it's like, oh, well, they were rusty, they should have played. A lot of that is fan. That's just, we want to, because we can't really comprehend how these other coaches devised a game plan, these other professional athletes played their ass off, and we don't really want to comprehend how that led to our favorite team losing. Thank you, Raheem Moore. Yeah, I'm a little scarred. And so a lot of times rest versus rust is on that. But sometimes even players talk about it, and so I don't want to totally dismiss it. The latest player to talk about it is KCP. Was on Draymond's show, and KCP said, you know what, I feel like we really put our foot to the gas, foot pedal to the metal, all that stuff. Like, we really took those last couple weeks of the regular season so hard because we wanted to secure the 1 seed and home court that we ran out of gas. I don't like that. And so, KCP's no longer on the Nuggets, so maybe he doesn't have to worry about the fallout of this. But I think it's extremely premature and extremely immature to think that Mike Malone, one of the most respected head coaches in the NBA, one of the best head coaches in the NBA, and Nikola Jokic, essentially the default best player on the planet for most people, wouldn't have said, hey, we're good. We got the 2 or the 3 seed. We're good. We're tired. Let's try to rest up a couple days, and then we'll get back to it. And he's like, I felt like we should have lost the Lakers series. Again, some of this stuff I don't think is said if he resigns. Because he's not resigning, some of this stuff is more available to be said because he doesn't have to walk back in the building and talk to Mike Malone, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray. This is kind of like how someone acts when they know they're about to quit and they're on their 2-week notice. And it's like, you're not, when you're brand new, you make sure you're just not on time. You make sure you're early. But if you have a 2 weeks notice in, you're probably, showing up right at start time. Maybe you're 5 minutes late because there's realistically nothing they can tell you that is going to impact your future. So KCP is definitely talking like somebody who has already left, put in their 2 week notice. But I just think it's immature, again, to think that one of the best head coaches in the NBA, one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA, didn't sit there and talk that last week or 2 of the season. And I know Mike Malone, his reputation is he's intense, everything. But Greg Popovich was intense. And the Spurs played every game. And when the Spurs were the best team at the end, they won the title. They didn't need, this is the part of rest versus rust I don't think is valid. When you are truly the best team, you will win. I know we don't want to think that because as fans, again, we sit there and put all of these things into our own terms, our own head, our own definitions because we want to think we're right. We want to think we understand it when the reality is we don't understand the professional athlete's body, these coaches, the way they practice, the way they're scouting, the way they're doing film study. We just truly don't understand it the same way they do. And that's fine. We're not supposed to. We're not meant to. That's not our job. Our job as a fan is to enjoy the game. So if your job is to enjoy the game, don't try, I say this all the time, don't try to outthink the people that are paid or think that you're smarter than people that are paid 6 figures to do this job or even 7 figures in some case. They know what they're doing. You don't know how to scheme up an offensive play set as good as Mike Malone. Sorry, you just don't. Even the coaches that don't work. Everybody was saying Darvin Ham can't call a play. I guarantee if you're in that same position with no prior knowledge of coaching or the game of basketball, whatever level that you interpret it at, you could not have done better than Darvin Ham. And so KCP, again, I get it. You're going out the door. You don't really have to be held accountable for this thing. But I just don't believe that not just Malone, not just Jokic, but other guys, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, guys who are credible, guys who have been all-stars in this league. I just don't think that, I guess that'd be funny. Someone's going to clip that. No, sorry, Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon never been all-stars. I know. But they have guys who are champions, guys who have done it. And Draymond just egging them on, talking about like, oh yeah, Lakers should have won. It's like, yeah, I don't really value Draymond's opinion like that, so whatever. But running out of gas, again, you're not walking back into the building. You're not going to really held be accountable. So you essentially at this point are a fan. And that to me is just how fans rationalize when their favorite team doesn't do as well as they think they should. And that just happens. Sometimes your favorite team just doesn't do well that year. And that's because the reality is, at the end of the day, the best teams win. And if you weren't the best team that year, sorry, you don't make it. Yeah, there's plays here, plays there, but the best teams find a way to recover. What is Tom Brady's most iconic moment in his career? Down 28-3. Most teams, you down 28-3, it's over. No more. That was supposed to be the end of Tom Brady's run, his dynasty, legacy, all that stuff. We were all celebrating on Twitter. I was there. Didn't matter. And the Nuggets were great, which is why that first round series that Draymond was trying to egg them on saying, yeah, you guys are supposed to lose. You guys are supposed to lose. No, they weren't. Because even though the Lakers are building up these 10 to 15 point leads, you weren't too tired or too rusty or whatever term you want to use, too run down to come back on the Lakers when you're down 10. You were better than them. You had higher levels of greatness that you could achieve versus the Los Angeles Lakers. So I don't buy it. I think rust versus rest is mostly a fan concept. These guys are professional athletes. They're some of the best trained athletes in the world. I don't believe that they need or that they can be totally undone in 2 weeks or a week or whatever the time is because, oh, we played too hard at the end of the regular season, or, oh, we didn't play hard enough. Because that becomes, it's always a cop-out. You can always go with either one. And you're never going to be truly right unless you just go off the end result. And then you're just playing revisionist history, and you can do that all day. Again, in football, I think there's a little more validity to it because in football, at least, if a star player gets injured and it's a contact sport, so injuries are just more applicable, more likely, fine. I get it. That I give a little bit more credence to. And the NBA, not a contact sport to the same degree that football is, obviously. Rest, rust, run down, all that stuff I think is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is the best teams will win, especially in the NBA, because you're playing offense, you're playing defense, you have 7 games. Reality is Minnesota was just better than you this year, Denver. That's all. And that's nothing to be ashamed of or nothing to be like, oh, we had a bad season. Minnesota was just better this year. Luka, I said this during his playoff run. He just was playing the best in the world, so his team went farther until he ran into the one team he couldn't just outgrade, which that was the Boston Celtics. So, yeah. Transition there really quick. This is a guy who I'm not sure I'm sold on this team, but I think I'm sold on how smart this person is at their job. I just said, you don't come out here and act like you know better or that you're smarter or that you're, more clever, whatever term you want to use, than these guys who are paid 6-7 figures to do their jobs. Just a personal belief of mine. I'm not that bright to begin with, so I'm like, look, I'm not that bright enough in my own life. I'm not going to assume I could go to your job and do what you do. And that applies to most fields, not just sports, right? If you went to a construction company, you don't try to sit there and try to outthink the construction company or the guys who have worked there for 30 years. Let them do their job. You do your job. Usually life works out really well that way. And I think that's really evident in Sean McVay, who I give, to add some context, I give Bill Belichick a pass on his last few years in New England. I know a lot of media members have been super critical, super against him, going like, look, Bill really didn't know what he was doing. He couldn't draft. His schemes were outdated. It was truly just an all Tom Brady thing and just smoke. It was Tom Brady, smoke, mirrors, and a little bit of Bill, right? Versus the perception of while they were together was like, okay, it's 60-40, 70-30. Like, people gave Bill a large amount of credit. But when people started coming out and, saying, well, Bill can't draft, Bill can't do this, hold on. Bill had 20 years of success. Yes, that is tied to a star quarterback who wasn't a star the first handful of those years, and they were winning Super Bowls before Tom Brady was a full-blown star. And after 20 years, now he's not good? Said the same about Greg Popovich. 20 plus years, has some losing seasons, and now he's not good? Is that what we're gonna say? Yes, you need great players to have great results. You don't have Brady, you don't have Duncan, you don't have Ginobili, you don't have Welker. Like, you don't have great results. Sorry, that's how it goes. Don't have Gronk, your results will decrease. But somebody who's done that exceptionally well, and this is just true genius. This is just a complimentary true genius thing. And I'm not as high on this team as everybody else is, but there's no denying what the Los Angeles Rams have done in the Sean McVay era. Almost instantaneously good. Got Jared Goff to Super Bowl, who Jared Goff, and the genius of McVay is how well he adapts. I want to be very clear. It's how well he adapts. He gets a former Jeff Fisher team that has a first overall quarterback who everybody's ready to call a bust. Jared Goff, first year, it was bad. They were ready to call him a bust. He gets that team, gets him to a Super Bowl. Pretty much instantaneously. It's like, hey, I have this guy. This is what he does good. This is where we're going to be. And they went from one of the most boring and prehistoric offense and just not a good offensive team whatsoever to then we all remember them scoring 50 against Kansas City on Monday Night Football, maybe the greatest Monday Night Football game ever played. We all remember that, right? We were there. We all watched it together. Gets that team to a Super Bowl and goes, hey, here's my next trick. I'm going to get rid of Jared Goff. Because I believe in my system and I believe in what I can do. We're going to get rid of Jared Goff. We need to upgrade. I want to do more, so I need a different quarterback to do more. They get Matthew Stafford. Win a Super Bowl. Instantly. So, coming off of a Brady, new team, new quarterback, and then Stafford. And Stafford is obviously not the player Brady was, even at that point of their careers. So, you already know that to get Stafford from who always had arm talent, always was talented, always was a really good to above average, really good quarterback, despite being in Detroit, you knew he was clearly good enough to accomplish more than what he was doing in Detroit. Detroit felt more like Detroit was dysfunctional more so than Matt Stafford. Sean McVay said, yeah, I want that guy. Gets that guy to a Super Bowl, wins it. Well, how do they follow that up? Well, they have a bad season. And he looks around and he goes, I need this, this, and this. I'm like, okay. McVay went from trading away all his draft picks, and that was the thing, right? The Super Bowl year, fuck them picks. To then becoming no, we're going to now go 2 or 3 drafts in a row, boom, 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 hit on guys, and now we're back to a playoff team. And even with Aaron Donald retiring, we're going to draft more D linemen. We're going to draft some more O linemen. We're going to fix both of those because we obviously lost Whitworth due to retirement. We're going to get Puka Nacua because Cooper Kupp he's going to get older, even though he just was coming off this Triple Crown year. I'm going to hit on early picks. I'm going to hit on late picks. We're going to turn this whole thing around, so much so that if they weren't in the division with the 49ers, and this is why I personally, and I think this does matter, I personally have them lower than a lot of people do because, if the boogeyman's in your division, the boogeyman's in your division. This is what I say about the AFC West. It doesn't matter if I feel like the Chargers with Harbaugh or the Broncos with Peyton, the Raiders not so much. If I feel like they got better, the reality of their situation is they play in a division with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, so you're only going to go so far because you're not going to get that much better overnight or even over the course of a year where you're closing that gap. So McVay went from Goff to Stafford, not drafting guys, to drafting guys. He's put Kupp, Nacua, all these different little iterations in still what is a short coaching career in totality, and he's made it work with all of them. So again, I don't criticize Belichick or Greg Popovich because they had losing seasons. But you've also got to give credit to a guy like Sean McVay, who has stylistically changed multiple times over the course of 6-7 years and gotten to a Super Bowl, made another one, won a Super Bowl, has had all the draft picks, has had no draft picks. The versatility to be this smart in this many areas, to be this adaptable, is something truly unique. And in the middle of all that, he said, I might retire and just go work TV because I'm so good in front of a camera that I can make this work if I no longer want to make this work. It's just, it's incredible. Like, you have to give these people, it's not just the baseline level of the competence or the baseline intelligence of these guys who are paid this amount of money to make this work. It's he's done it, and he's done it in such a versatile fashion, so many different ways. You can't do anything but just clap it up for him. So, and like I said, I don't think the Rams are going to be, I've heard a lot of other media guys talk about, the Rams are potentially a Super Bowl team. The Rams are going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. I'm not quite there, and that's solely because of the 49ers existing. And Kyle Shanahan is almost all of that, except you don't have quite the versatility, because even though he's taken 2 different quarterbacks, he's had the same set of core star players, McCaffrey, Kittle, Warner. So it's a little different than what I would give Sean McVay, but Sean McVay, just, you've got to clap it up for him. The brilliance is there. It's undeniable. When we come back, we're going to do It's the top 10 most interesting storylines in the NFL this year. So it's not going to be the things that I'm hoping to happen. Well, I am hoping because they're interesting. It'll make them fun to talk about. But it will be the top 10 things that if they do happen, these are the most interesting potential storylines in the NFL. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily.
Yeah. It's facts. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
Paul George to the Sixers. I think this should matter. I think it does matter for the optimism of the fan base. They also just re-signed Tyrese Maxey. But I also think the reality is Paul George to the Sixers, all it does is slightly change the odds of how much they'll lose by if Joel Embiid still goes down. Do not be mistaken. This is still a Joel Embiid or bust team that the Sixers have. If Embiid is healthy, he's there for the playoffs. They have a chance because he is that talented. He also has to perform, which was his problem last year. I understand it last year was more nicks and bruises versus him outright being out. But Paul George, great player, coming off a career high shooting from three. But the reality is the Sixers are only going as far as Embiid, and that's with even the emergence and how great Max. Paul George. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for joining as always. So this list is, again, We are not doing the top 10 things most likely to happen. We're not doing the top 10 things that I'm rooting for or rooting against. Again, like I said before the break, I'm somewhat rooting for these things because they are interesting and interesting things to talk about and genuinely interesting things. I don't think these are just let's make up a media point and then start running with it. No, I think these things are all plausible and they are the most interesting outcomes you can get from this NFL season. So let's start with the easy one, but we're going to put a twist on it, and that is the Chiefs struggle to three-peat. You know what's not interesting? We had this in the NBA during LeBron-Steph years. LeBron, Steph, KD, the second half, the latter half of the Golden State dynasty. It was boring because we knew LeBron was clearly the best player in the East, and he was so much better he was going to drag whatever team he had to the finals. And the Warriors were clearly just the best team maybe ever, and they were going to be in the finals and win the finals. But no one likes it when it's a cakewalk or it's too easy or it looks simple or we just already know. You know what made part of last season interesting is that even though if I just show you the score sheet of Chiefs start the season, this is their record, win Super Bowl, it's not going to look historically crazy, but we all watch the games. We watch them struggle. We watch their offense. This was the worst offense they've had in the Reed-Mahomes era. So what made it interesting is that it looked like they had a weakness. It looked like they had flaws. It looked like you could do something to them and that they were possible to beat, which they don't always feel that way. Trust me. And so I don't think them winning a third straight, being the first member to three-peat, that's historically, a really big storyline. But I think the more interesting one is, do they struggle again like they did last year? Maybe not the exact same, but let's say the defense isn't as good or Mahomes has another down year, but they still end up with a Lombardi and they go 3 straight titles while not even quote-unquote playing their best or playing that great. That, to me, one of the top 10 interesting storylines. These aren't in order, by the way. These are just the 10 that I'm going with. Second storyline, and very fitting, it's the second rookie quarterback. So I think most people are of the belief Caleb Williams is going to do really well and that he's going to be, we've all talked about it, potentially the best situation ever for a rookie quarterback. But that then, because he's the first overall pick, and he's not just the first overall pick, he is in this generational class. They throw him in the same class with guys like Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence coming out. You are immediately walk in, face the franchise quarterback, all this stuff. Like, you should be great day one. So it's not so much him, but it's who's the second guy. Because everybody else's situation is really interesting. Jaden Daniels and the dysfunction that has been Washington, but now there's new ownership, new coach. Everything's new about that place. Does Jaden Daniels usher in this new era of Washington football? Dake Maye with the Patriots. We're already seeing some of the throws coming out of training camp. He's obviously the most raw prospect out of all of them. Can make the big throws, can make the big plays. Is he going to step up and create this post-Tom Brady New England front of, are they going to be competitive again? Is, him and Gerard Mayo. Then we go down the list. Michael Penix. Is he going to even play? What if Michael Penix plays? Do you know the stories that have to happen if Michael Penix plays? Do you know what has to happen? Like, I'm not saying anything bad on Kirk Cousins, knock on wood, but if Michael Penix just sees the field, it's already interesting. It's already interesting if he just sees the field. Then you go down again to J.J. McCarthy, who has the best wide receiver in the National Football League, a Minnesota team that we talked about yesterday. They believe they are ready to compete. They believe they're as good as just about anybody. They have one of the best high-end rosters in the NFL. What's J.J. McCarthy? And then Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Is Sean Payton actually washed? Are his schemes outdated? Can he make it work with the guy that he decided to take when everybody else, again, I said, for Michael Penix to get on the field, how interesting it'll be. If Bo Nix has any kind of success this year, legitimate success, I'm not talking about a 300-yard game here or there. If he has 5, 6, 7 games in a row of looking like a franchise quarterback, Everybody said, Tony included, laughed at the Broncos for taking him. It's a joke. He's a second-round grade, a third-round grade. Why did they take him that high? The interest of the second rookie quarterback doing almost anything, and obviously if you want to get out of the first round, anytime a guy who is second round or later ends up making an impact, those storylines write themselves. But a second rookie quarterback would be one of the 10 most interesting things to happen in this NFL season. Harbaugh and the Chargers. Look, man, Jim Harbaugh has a case. I don't know college football well enough to if I would make it, but guys that I respect and guys that I listen to says you could argue he's the best coach on the planet because he's had success in the pros and college. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's won a national championship. He's coming off his national championship with Michigan. There is an argument that he's the best head football coach on the planet because of that resume of being able to do it at both levels. And then you have Justin Herbert, who was basically anointed since day one, or since he got in the game. I don't want to say since day one, but since his day one when he got in the game, he was so great so early. But now you've already got the numbers, but now you've got the contract. You don't have a playoff win, but we've already blamed everybody else. They've ran out multiple head coaches. There's new players on the roster, and you're making the big bucks, and you've got potentially the best coach on the planet. You need to get it done. And what if they're good right away? What if they're not? Both are compelling. Both are genuinely compelling stories, whether they're successful or they're not. An A-level quarterback in Justin Herbert with an A-level head coach, Jim Harbaugh, you got to get something out of this, right? And like I said, these are interesting almost no matter how these happen. These is why I think these storylines specifically are extremely interesting. Fourth, the Broncos and Sean Payton. Yeah, maybe this one's a little bit biased, but I think Sean Payton is still a big enough name in the space and in the football world that if because of him and Bo Nix, and I think PFF rated the Denver Broncos the worst roster in the sport. Now, I don't believe that, not to even take bias aside. I think Carolina's got a worse roster. I think there's an argument Washington has a worse roster. So they rated Denver worst roster in the sport. Well, if I told you, if any sport, any profession, the worst guy or the worst team or the worst whatever, excuse me, had a successful season or successful at what they were doing, they were the quote-unquote underdogs, and if you're rated the worst roster in the league, you're an underdog, and they had success, immediate storyline. It's immediately interesting. Now, this one, obviously, they're immediately uninteresting if they're not good. They start off 0-4, 1-5, something like that. They're immediately uninteresting. Nobody besides me talks about them. Understandable. Fine. Have a nice day. Been doing that for 7 years. What if the Jets are good? Now, you got to hear me out here. And I this is the one I hope doesn't happen. If I was to say I was rooting, some of these are rooting for because they're interesting. This one I'm kind of rooting against. But what if Aaron Rodgers, after being not just the player, but Aaron Rodgers the person, as he's rubbed so many people the wrong way, and as he has done some of these, I'm going to stand on this hill, I'm going to be the outlier, I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. Like, he's obviously rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and doing it in his own way where he wants to prove, I'm right, I'm smart, you're not. But what if they're good? Like, what if the Jets are like 5-2, 6-3? Like, this is the one I don't want to see happen. Because then, because what do you say to him? You can't tell him, oh, don't do the things you're doing, because he'll have the success to back it up. And as soon as he's good again, and there's success and results on the field, his resume immediately speaks for itself. That's why we still talk about him to the degree that he does, or why people still talk about him to the degree that they do, because he is still a multiple-time MVP quarterback. He'll, if they're playing well, and he's playing well, he'll immediately be one of the best quarterbacks ever over the age of 40. Like, what if the Jets are good? I don't want to see it happen, but just, like, what if? Just what if? This one's really, I am rooting for this one. And I think this one is specific, and it only applies to this quarterback. Technically, I guess this could apply to this quarterback I'm about to mention, or technically Jordan Love, but because he's not in the conference, I'm excluding him. C.J. Stroud beats Mahomes in the playoffs. Hear me out. Yes, Joe Burrow could beat Mahomes, but we've seen that. Josh Allen could beat Mahomes. I think a lot of us are running our course there, wherever it's pretty clear one is definitively better than the other. Lamar could beat Mahomes, and it'd kind of feel like, okay, it's about time. C.J. Stroud has never played Patrick Mahomes. C.J. Stroud just had one of the most impressive rookie seasons ever in NFL history. If you're a sports nerd like I am, one of the things are like we love to consider hypotheticals. And while I don't necessarily say this in public because I'll sound like an idiot, it's cool in your mind to go, what if a guy could win a national title and win a Super Bowl in like consecutive seasons? And now Joe Burrow, to his credit, almost wrote this improbable storyline of where national title, number 1 overall pick, he got hurt, and then he came back healthy and got to a Super Bowl. That was really cool. That was one of the more impressive starts to a career ever. Stroud, while he's not going to be the Super Bowl winner potentially or the national title winner, it's if he comes in, puts up one of the most impressive rookie seasons in NFL history, and then the first chance he gets, he beats Mahomes, he will have on his resume, and this is one of the things that keeps Burrow really high on a lot of people's list. Burrow being 3-1 against Mahomes is huge. It just is. If Stroud comes off one of the best rookie seasons in NFL history and he beats Mahomes the first chance he gets and it's in the playoffs, what if he goes 2-0? Then, and these all happen fast. And I know it's insane. You're not going to say he's better than Mahomes because Mahomes still have 3 Super Bowls, will still be obviously more accomplished, and you're not leapfrogging a guy off 2 years, but you're going to put yourself in some conversations. So I think C.J. Stroud specifically. Now, again, this also could apply to Jordan Love, but he's in the NFC. It's why I didn't choose him. And I just think Stroud's better than Jordan Love personally. This one might be a surprise to people, but this almost feels unfair. This is kind of playing off the second rookie quarterback because this guy didn't play very much last year. Anthony Richardson. Now, again, we all love CJ. I do too. We all love the direction the Texans are heading. We all think they're on the path to greatness, and it's as clear as day, and we can all see it, which is why we're all big believers. We can see the clear path to greatness. Anthony Richardson was doing some crazy shit before he got hurt last year. And I believed coming into the draft, Anthony Richardson had the highest upside anyway out of all of these players. Like, I thought his upside, it was worth drafting Anthony Richardson. I believe this wholeheartedly with every draft. And even when you have generational guys, but generally the generational guys have the highest upside. If everybody's equal, always take the bigger upside. And you shouldn't feel bad about swinging and missing on those guys. You should feel bad if you swing and miss on a Mac Jones or a guy who has they always call them high floor, low ceilings. I don't like that. Like, I would not want to swing and take a first round pick and overdraft potentially that guy if I think there's a limit to what he can do. But if I have a guy like Anthony Richardson who is, have you guys seen Anthony Richardson? Like, the level of athlete that he is? Like, he could run. If you're talking about dual threat quarterbacks, obviously Lamar and Josh Allen have separated themselves. Anthony Richardson is every bit the athlete to catch up to those guys. Anthony Richardson has a cannon of an arm. He was shown to be accurate. He has a head coach who, I think was Shane Steichen, that we all are far more confident in year 2, considering all the adversity he had to face in year 1, and he still got through that. And now he gets his potential franchise quarterback back. And he's going to be running into C.J. Stroud, so you have an instant rivalry there. He's going to be running into Trevor Lawrence. The AFC South, which was thought to be, and Mayonnaise Man, Will Levis. The AFC South, which was probably thought to be one of the worst conferences worst divisions a few years ago, could potentially now have 3 high-end franchise quarterbacks. And if you're Trevor Lawrence, you can't let both C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson catch you. But he's back. He's going to know things to avoid, obviously, especially since he has firsthand experience getting injured. His head coach is going to be even more confident, more accustomed. Anthony Richardson has a chance to be his own extremely polarizing storyline. The Cowboys' demise. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I hate these kind of subjects and topics, but considering where they're at financially with contracts, with CD, Micah, Dak, this Cowboy season, however it goes, and I think it's going to be kind of a shit show, is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Jerry reacts to their contracts. It's going to be interesting to see how the players react. It's going to be see who even is playing, who's getting paid, all this stuff. Like, the Cowboys, unfortunately, and this is not just Brand, even though Brand does play a part in it, they are going to be one of the most interesting teams in the NFL, unfortunately. It just is what it is. What if the Bears are elite? Now, I'm not as high on the Bears as a lot of other people are, who are claiming they could win 10, 11, 12 games, could potentially, if Caleb is that great off the bat, that he could be potential low, dark horse Super Bowl contenders. But what if they are? I think the NFC right now has a really big problem, which is it's got a clear best team, the 49ers, and then it has a handful of other teams, but we're already kind of used to them, right? Like, we're used to the Eagles. We're used to the Cowboys did win 12 games this year. You have to give them credit for that. You know, the NFC South, we're used to it being a revolving door. And the North, we're primarily used to the Packers. We haven't had a great Bears team in a while, and Chicago is one of the biggest sports markets in the world. And the Bulls ain't helping themselves. And, you know, the Cubs and the White Sox, they're the Cubs and the White Sox. So what if Caleb Williams just truly takes over Chicago? What if they are an 11-12 win team? What if they are vying for entry into the Super Bowl? What if they are in the NFC Championship game? Big market, generational quarterback, a lot of weapons. Could be fun, could be exciting. A lot of interesting pieces if the Bears are good. And this is the team where I'm not necessarily rooting on your downfall, but I think they're the most interesting downfall personally. There's always a fire sale team, and it's generally a team that isn't as good as they thought they were going to be, but they're paying guys, and now every team pays guys because there's just so much money in the NFL. Every team has guys making $20, $25 million a year at certain positions. But that bill also becomes due if you mess that up. And I think if the Cleveland Browns aren't good this year, you can't get rid of the quarterback. No one's going to want him, and he's probably going to be part of the reason that you're bad. And he's got a fully guaranteed contract, so it doesn't do you any good. But you're going to have Amari Cooper, Denzel Ward, some linemen. Pretty much everybody on that roster besides Myles Garrett and the freaky man playing quarterback are going to potentially be up for sale, and that is a really talented roster to play fire sale with. Like the Cowboys, if the Cowboys turn bad, I don't see them getting rid of CeeDee Lamb and or Micah Parsons, and Dak's not going to get traded because quarterbacks just don't get traded mid-season. But if the Browns, if you have to, because you're paying the freaky man so much, because you're paying Myles Garrett so much, do you get rid of one or two of your linemen? Do you trade Amari Cooper, even though I know you just restructured his contract to actually give him more money, but you know he's still going to make the, hey, we're not good, not going to make it. We've got to start peeling some of this stuff back and try to recoup some of our assets. The Jets, I think the Jets are too young as the other team that could potentially be bad. And then fire sale, they're not going to get rid of Rodgers, obviously. I don't think they're going to get rid of Garrett Wilson. They're not going to get rid of Sauce Gardner. Like, the Browns are a very intriguing fire sale team. So, yeah, man, those are my top 10. Those are the top 10 interesting storylines from this NFL season that's coming up. One last thing to talk about. We're taking one final break here. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate you all for joining.
Yeah. Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the 4 with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Dropped the foe in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
Whether or not Michael Jordan has a Defensive Player of the Year award or not does not change his actual greatness as a defender. People that need stats, accolades, what the record books looks like to justify how great a player is, you're just wrong. Otherwise, you would think Wilt's the greatest player ever, or you would think Kareem isn't the greatest player ever conversation. We have eyes. We've seen it. Whether you're a Mike's the GOAT kind of person, you're a LeBron's the GOAT kind of person, you're a Kobe's the GOAT person, maybe you're a Paul George is the GOAT. Yeah, you Paul George GOAT people, probably not so much. But we have eyes. We've seen how great these individuals are. We don't need stats, records, achievements. Those things are cool, and it's great for the individual person. But those things aren't really needed to determine who's the better player, who's truly great. Mike was a great defensive player with or without award. Come on now. Stop the bullshit. Whether or not Mike... Welcome back. This is HardFoul Radio. We're about to be wrapping it up here. Just a few more things to discuss really quick. The NBA came out about an hour ago or an hour and a half ago and said, hey, we're going to be taking the Amazon deal. Yes, TNT matched a physical number that was similar to Amazon, but the contract and the details of it were different enough that we're like, yeah, we're taking Amazon's money. And they should. I believe wholeheartedly they should. TNT and Inside the NBA, and as we get closer to it when it's actually gone, because it'll still be here next season, we'll give an actual wrap-up to Inside the NBA because it deserves it. It's an iconic show. It's a part of NBA history. But right now is not the time. We'll do that later. But I believe the NBA absolutely made the right choice. I think you could have lived in fear, which is, okay, take TNT's money because we know Inside the NBA works, versus do we go with the slightly more risky option in Amazon because they haven't been here yet. The reality is the way Amazon moves, the way that company has handled itself, the way they do business, you go with Amazon. They're more progressive, they're faster, it's time to move on. You're trying to get a fresh start, as I said the other day, especially as you move into this post LeBron James part of your media where like you have to start marketing these other guys, you have to start bringing other things. It's a brand. There's so much in sports media that's up for grabs right now. Skip Bayless no longer really being active in the space. I think Stephen A's time it's closer to the end than the beginning. Jim Rome, Colin Cowherd are clearly on the back end of their careers now. While they're all still obviously productive, put up numbers, all that stuff, there's a lot changing in the sports media landscape, and I think a handful of people are going to capitalize on it, and a handful of companies are going to capitalize on it. But the NBA, and they made the right choice, don't live in fear. The NFL is never, I would say never, the NFL does not make fearful moves that often, even if it goes against public perception. And that's how we're going to end today. And I don't like this idea, by the way. I want to be very clear here, but it's the NFL, and I firmly believe it'll work. And that is an 18-game season. And I might expand on this a bit more tomorrow. But the idea of an 18-game season sounds crazy as a fan, and if you know anything about like the health and just the reality of the sport that they're playing, it sounds nuts. It does. It sounds nuts. But it'll work because it's the NFL, and they're not scared to do this. People said, don't do Thursday night football. Too much football. They did Thursday night football with Amazon. Look at the numbers of Thursday night football. They even marketed in a way where they're like, look, we're going to make this work because we're going to put every single team on there, even if they suck, so everybody will have a week to be extra excited. They figured it out. They weren't scared to keep moving, keep doing more. And the NFL now has moved around its schedule in such a way where, again, people consider this the slow time of sports, even though it's in the middle of baseball season. But then they've been saying, oh, it's actually not that slow because the NFL offseason is so much fun. The NFL is just truly, truly running the game on how to run a professional sports league. They're just running the game on it right now. So, while I don't believe, personally, an 18-game season is smart for a handful of reasons, the reality is it'll work because everything the NFL has done has worked. If the NFL tells me they're going to put in a 33rd team, that'll work. They don't move in a way that is fearful or worried about potential backlash. They make smart, correct business decisions, and they do it more successfully than any other league, and that's why they are running the lap and running the field on the other sports leagues. With that being said, like I said, I might expand a little bit more tomorrow. With that being said, appreciate everybody as always. Don't forget we have a different time tomorrow because Thursdays I got to record A&M with Matt, and so that will be taking place during this 4 to 6 time frame. So you guys will see me tomorrow after 6. So appreciate everybody, whether you are listening after the fact or you were here for the live stream. I appreciate you guys. This is HardFoul Radio.